We're seeing that rent growth is continuing to be almost non-existent. And so every operator is taking a deeper look at their operating costs. And that's where we play a key role because utilities are usually the third largest expense. So that's where we've done a great job of making sure that we look at the data and help them find those inefficiencies in a better way and produce better recovery for them.
Excited to be here at 2026 NAA, National Apartment Association, here with the great team at Anchor. I mean, unreal what you all are doing. So I'd love to kick it off. You know, building a company, building a brand. What does it mean to you all to come to this show and to be a part of NAA?
Thank you, Chris. NAA's put on a great show, and as always, New Orleans has been exceptional. I think the venue, the people, the space here. We're just excited to see our customers and hopefully meet some new customers here.
Yep.
And it's always a good time for us.
What does it mean for you, Jeff, to be here and to see everyone every year at NAA?
Yeah, Chris, thank you. Yeah, Apartmentalize every year brings the energy. For us, it's a lot about the connections that we're able to form. And NAA does a great job of, putting on education content and creating a space for us to showcase our products and services. And everyone's smiling, and they brought a lot of great energy with the speakers. And so we're excited to be here, and some good food too.
I love that. As you talked about education, leadership, in this day and age, everyone's talking about AI. And so you can be here in real life. You can meet mentors. You can be kind. You can learn. You can help, support. It's so much being on the trade show floor to see this incredible stuff. Dive deep. You got some great giveaways here. I think a lot about leadership and culture and the friends who I've had and mentors. We've built a great relationship over the years. What does it mean, in terms of coming in real life to build trust? And why does that matter when building a business?
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, we're always people, process, product, and the people is the most important part. You have to make those investments. We've done a great job in our product of balancing AI with the human touch because you can't go AI all the way because there are going to be inconsistencies. You need that subject matter expert to really lean in and find some of those inconsistencies and help connect the dots. And so from our perspective, we think we're doing a great job of balancing those components, and we have a great team that's really helping solve some real problems for our customers.
I love that. Oftentimes we talk about customers, right? There's residents in the buildings, and then there's our customers who are also the owners and operators of these properties. And they're under so much pressure to perform, right? So how do you think that as a CEO and thinking about great customer experiences? Everyone talks about it, but how do you guys show up to make a difference in the customers who live in the buildings and the customers who you work with that run and operate these buildings?
Sure. I think always the focus is that we have the same customer. The end customer is the resident. We want the resident experience to be seamless. We want to be better than any other utility provider that they would normally have. If you had Comcast or any of the national utility companies, make that experience way better. And then balancing that with our customer, the property managers, the management company, providing them with the proactive information that they need to better manage their assets, create efficiencies both for their utility usage and consumption, and also better experience for the resident.
Yep. And obviously expectations of residents are evolving faster than ever, right? They have better technology. They're using AI sometimes often more than people in business are. What are you seeing? What are some evolutions that you're seeing from a resident perspective? Because I think you service now over 500,000 units. Is that right?
Yeah, no, we certainly do, Chris. Thank you. I think it really boils down to removing friction, and that's both on the operator side and the resident side. I mean, everything through COVID, there's been a lot of simplification, and the focus is still around how do you remove friction. And we've really tried to anchor ourselves in that consistency because that's where, when we're creating that efficiency, as Brian talked about for our customers, utilities, when things go wrong, everybody notices, but when utilities are managed well, no one notices, and that's where we really want to show up.
We think about the resident side, there's so many things we can talk about, but obviously on the customer side, what are some wins and exciting things you're seeing out there, especially as technology is changing and you're innovating as a company?
Good question. Utility billing is multifaceted. In our space, utility expense management is a big area of focus. That's where we're kind of outsourcing accounts payable. We're processing all the utility bills, which can be in the thousands per month, and then leveraging that data to give them actionable information back. I would say waste is another large pain point of just the cost. If you're not tracking your waste management, those costs can escalate greatly. So looking at the services they have, coming up with a plan to make those more efficient and reduce those costs is where we're focused.
I'll quickly add to Brian's comments. For us, we're, as an industry as a whole, we're seeing that rent growth is continuing to be almost non-existent. And so every operator is taking a deeper look at their operating costs. And that's where we play a key role because utilities are usually the third largest expense. And we were approached by Allegiant Carter recently. They've been a great partner, and we've done a lot of success with them, focusing on helping them improve their recovery, because that's where we got to get that NOI where it needs to be for properties. That's what we all really care about, beyond creating best experiences. And so that's where we've done a great job of making sure that we look at the data and help them find those inefficiencies in a better way and produce better recovery for them.
And it's amazing. I mean, like you said, it can be challenging running a business and operation, let alone a company like yours, but also operating a community and property with residents who have high expectations. I think, Jeff, you spent years helping operators navigate the intersection of utilities. You've lived and become an expert in the energy space. What's something that you're seeing that maybe is evolving, and what's something that drew you to the space and keeps you in this space?
Yeah, great question. Honestly, I fell into utilities right out of college. I was approached by a company and asked if I'd be interested in doing utilities and real estate. And the story is, Chris, I looked at them, I said, how hard could this be? You flip the switch and the lights come on. And now, almost 20 years later, I've been in utilities most of my career. It's been great, but it is evolving, continuing to evolve, especially around the amount of data and how do you digest that data. I say all the time, we have portal fatigue. And so part of where we show up at Anchor is we really try to be proactive in that approach. We've built an amazing client success team because we really just want to have a in-person conversation with our customers and talk about the themes that we're seeing and bring them some solutions that they can consider to better manage those utilities.
It's well said. I think about a friend of mine, Savas, who's out in Washington, D.C. He said the best technology, it's all about implementation. Sure. It's all about understanding of your staff and your teams and your residents actually enjoying the experience. How do you think about that? And hiring the right culture, hiring the right team, making sure you put your true customers first and then your investors second. How do you think about that?
It probably starts with our leadership team, right? Like depth and breadth of industry experience. Everybody on our leadership team is 20 plus years experience in property management, a lot in utilities, and then it trickles down. Every lead in our business, our client success, everybody knows what our customers deal with day to day. And having that connection is really important. You can't just say, I worked at Amazon and so now I can service apartment complexes. There are so many nuances in our space and what our customers care about and what their residents care about. So making sure that's covered throughout.
I think one of the wildest things now, especially with technology, integrations, AI, every single day there's a change in the news about a company changing this, changing that. We're shipping faster than ever. How do you think about operators and owners? Traditionally in real estate, people tend to move a lot slower. They don't love change. They want to stay consistent. What are some examples of maybe separation of great operators, great management companies that you're seeing who are really stepping out and doing great things with their organizations? Any examples you can share?
Consistency is so important in our industry, but at the end of the day, there is a need for disruption. And that's where, especially in utilities, there's not a lot that has drastically changed. However, the folks that are going to get left behind is if they're not diving into those types of resources to make sure that they have the best solution in place. For example, a recent partner of ours, the hardest part for them was not about the savings that wasn't there to see. The hardest part was, how do we invest the resources and prioritize this over other things? And at the end of the day, kind of what we talked about is it's like moving. Nobody likes to move, but occasionally you just have to take that step because you're going to have an opportunity to declutter, reorganize, put stuff in a fresh space. And once you're there, you get to sit back and smile and say, wow, this is exciting. We're now on a new journey. And so for that aspect, when we bring that value to our partners and we help make that process as easy and simple as possible, then we all celebrate in the end.
As we think about early adopters and people who take those bets on you as people, to build that trust and reputation and actually sometimes be the guinea pigs, right? There's guinea pigs, there's people who never want to be a guinea pig. I think of people like Steve Halsey, Maria Banks, I think a lot of like Steph Furman, Gardner Reese, some of these incredible people in the industry who want to find the right technologies. Is there anyone who took a bet on you earlier in your career or who you want to give a shout out to who's mentored you or supported you?
Yeah, no, that's a great point, Chris, because this industry is built on a lot of legends and there's a lot of great people in our industry. And I'll never forget a moment back early in my career. I was on a golf course. We had sponsored a hole, like so many of us do. And Mike Clark walked up the hill and he knew my company, but was having some challenges with my company. And he said, why are you here? And I said, my name is Jeff and I'm here to help. And from there, Mike and I formed a relationship. He ultimately did a transaction with his company, Alpha Barnes, but Mike and I have remained friends to this date. And to your point, he invested in me. We went to breakfast. He helped me get on the board of the apartment association. And I haven't looked back because it's given me so much. And this is what, kind of shows me that multifamily really is a family.
Fantastic. What are some of the trends that stand out to you, especially when you're thinking about like leadership? I'm sure you look across industries to maybe get some things that are, playing in several different fields. And energy is such a massive space, right? It's so important. You think about the things you're focused on, which is energy, trash, and other areas. Those are things that every American has to have. So what are some of the trends that you're seeing in these spaces that people should be really paying attention to?
I would say, how data is received is probably top of mind. Jeff mentioned earlier portal fatigue, not having to log in to get the information, being proactive both to our customers and their residents about anywhere they can create savings or make changes in their usage or consumption to make a difference.
What's something else that maybe you're seeing? Trends that stand out right now, especially, because these are two wildly, I think a lot of the confusion, I've always been confused in these spaces as I dig in and realize, wow, they're so complicated. There's so many regulatory details here we have to think about.
Yeah. No, there's certainly, Chris, a lot of roads that intersect there. But I think currently, for me, one of the most exciting areas is the smart home technology and how that has played such a large role in utility management. When you talk about how you can have access to thermostats from faraway places and you can control those thermostats. Me, myself, Nest Learning thermostats in my home. And funny story, just this past weekend, a friend stayed with me and he's like, why is it so hot and you're downstairs? I go, well, he doesn't know that you're here, and so we got to change because it learns our habits and it knows that we're not there, which is great to save energy, but I think it's really important that folks, kind of embrace that technology because it can make life a little bit easier, but ultimately save you money on utilities just by the use of technology.
I love that. To your point, what American right now has their energy bills going down, right? Costs are going up, inflation is going up, it's not going to turn around. What's something that maybe you're seeing there, as you're talking about lowering energy bills? I think that's a really important thing to talk about because that helps obviously operators of properties. Residents have more optionality than ever before on where they can live, right? There's definitely less demand and there's more supply. What's something that you're seeing that residents are demanding and something maybe you're trying to fill the gap on?
Yeah, I would say, Chris, demand from the resident side is really around visibility. Currently, the industry is wrangling a lot around fee transparency. And, there is a lot of different ways to approach it right now. And I think we're still trying to adapt and adjust as an industry or what are some of the best practices. But we've started to see it come up in states all around the country. And it is delicate balance, I guess is the word I would use around what operators need and what residents need. But the good news is I think we can all come to the table and find some of the best solutions. And that's where Anchor has played a key role. We're part of a utility management association, which allows us to come to the table with all the various stakeholders and have conversations about that so that we can put those best practices in place. And a lot of our legislators, they want that guidance from us. They're not experts in every field. And so, that's where, the National Apartment Association and many of our associations have done a great job of building those relationships so that we can come to the table and find the right solution.
I think that's one thing I admire about you is that you show up to NEA, NMHC, RETC, you're constantly on Capitol Hill, you're working closely because and something I didn't know was how important those local municipality laws, those local state laws from Texas to Georgia to California are so unique. And if it's all changing, no operator and owner can truly be aware of it all. They have to trust you. What's something that stands out for you? Obviously a great team and a powerhouse of a team here, but what's something that's standing out from you, that you're seeing across the country? Is there anything that people should be aware of from state law to local law or things that you're aware of right now?
As Jeff kind of mentioned, we're part of UMCA. We've had a board seat there for the last about 8 years. So we are really involved with the association utilities across the U.S. I would say there's a large consistency of transparency throughout, fairness, right, to residents, no surprises. So although the regulatory landscape is very nuanced in all the areas, it still has consistency. And we want to be stewards of the industry and make sure we're forming a service that is fair and transparent.
Well, I definitely see you all showing up locally, the different associations. I see you at the national level, consistently supporting. I think the education piece that you talked about earlier is so important, between education. As you mentioned earlier, things are going to go wrong. And I always think about it, how do you react when something goes wrong? Because nothing's perfect in this world, especially with outages. I know we had a big storm. My internet here in Louisiana went out this morning, so I had to connect to my phone, right, for a call. But you think about that, of how reliant we are on these systems and energy systems, especially right now with data centers coming in and whatnot. I'll ask you, if we think about events like NAA, RETC, and other organizations that you participate in, how important, many people say that conferences are dying back. I believe it's actually a huge opportunity to double down and go more in real life and meet people, because you're building bonds that these properties are worth tens of millions of dollars. They house thousands of families, if not tens of thousands of families in these portfolios. So how important is that, getting to see your customers in person?
It's extremely important. I think we all refer back to COVID, right? And we got used to being on Zoom, and the importance of being in person, connecting with the clients is extremely important. So the shows highlight that. Love visiting our clients and sitting down and creating solutions in person. So nothing really replaces that. So we make an effort to do that as much as possible.
Absolutely. We need to show up and have that human connection. And, we tend to solve things a lot easier when we're in the same room together. And what we will continue to invest in from an association perspective to do that. I think the challenge comes in because, yes, there's always opportunity. And for me, the opportunity is I feel like there's a need for curated experiences, specialized conferences. And I think NAA, they're absolutely doing a great job of making sure that we have something for everyone. And so I think as long as we keep the goal in place of curated experience and be able to connect the right people, because in a conference with 10,000 people, that gets a little bit nuanced, doesn't change the importance of having these types of opportunities to make those connections.
I love that. I want to do some closing thoughts here. I think about advice you've received, or maybe one of the most memorable. It could be from someone, here in the industry. It could be even a mentor you've had outside. Is there a piece of advice, one of the best pieces of advice you ever received, and that's stuck with you?
Yeah, no, I appreciate the question. I take advice all the time, every day. I need it. Yeah, no, I would go back to the word consistency. It's not always the right time, the right place. Like, we got to do this deal today. Really just needs to be the right fit and the right solution. And so I would say the advice comes down to being consistent. And to your point, that's where I have really, yes, I have a job to do and help grow a company, but what I care most about is the industry and the advocacy work that we're doing and the education that we're doing, because that is really what makes the industry what it is today. And so I continue to focus on that because I care about the industry.
So as we think in the industry about people who have made an impact on us, and these things are instilled to us, what's something that stood out to you, maybe something that was instilled in you from your family or from mentors that is an important part of the way you do business?
It's kind of the golden rule, and treating others as you want to be treated. And I really instill creating partnerships, right? Like, I'm not just selling a service to another provider. I want to be a partner with you. Like, I want to understand your challenges. We want to create products and services that meet those challenges. And if you have a problem, like, let's talk about it. Let's figure it out, and vice versa. There's things that we need from you. You're our partner, and let's make this a seamless partnership and make it good for everybody.
Love that. As we close up here, obviously there's 12,000 people coming here, getting together, talking about housing, talking about technologies, sharing the challenges. Some people are a little pessimistic. Some people are very optimistic. I'm very optimistic. What's something that keeps you optimistic? Is there something you're excited about in housing and the resident experience and the future of technology?
I think for me, Chris, the exciting part is I think today's renter is also tomorrow's renter. You think about 10 years ago, people rented because that was just their path to a home. And we as an industry have done such a great job of making renters by choice because of the flexibility, the amenities, the experience, the location. All of that plays a role, but I think that's what's going to keep our industries strong for the decades to come, because we're really making renter the preferred lifestyle.
You just hit home. That's something I realized. My 4 sisters and my dad are all renters by choice. They choose not to buy homes. They prefer the flexibility of living in an apartment. Number 2, they're like, why would I pay for a home? That's going to be 30 to 40% more expensive. So nothing against buying a home. I love my home. But they absolutely prefer the amenities they can have, the community they can have of hundreds of other people there. So I love you sharing that. What's something that keeps you optimistic, Brian, about the industry and technology and the future of resident experience?
Just the general thought that I feel like the vendors in our space really, truly are there to give a better experience to the resident. To your point, the hassles of home ownership, fixing things, having to get things serviced. Those are all things that every vendor here today is really, truly trying to solve and make more seamless and easier for the resident. It's just that continued focus on the resident experience.
Awesome. Thank you both for spending time with me. I look forward to doing an update with you both later this year. Thanks so much. Cheers, guys.
Thank you.